Let's talk about percentiles and movements. Couple of pretty basic concepts in statistics. But again, we are working our way up to bear so me as we go through some of the review. Percentiles, basically, if you imagine that if you were to sort all of the data in a data set, a given percentile is the point at which that percent of the data is less than the point you are at. A common example that you see talked about a lot is income distribution. When we talk about 99th percentile or the 1%, imagine that you were to take all of the countries, that everybody in the country, in this case the United States, and sort them by income. The 99th percentile should be the income amount at which 99% of the rest of the country was making less than that. So that's a very easy way to comprehend it. It is some real data that, for example, at the 99th percentile, you can say that 99% of the data points here, which represent people in America, make less than $506 thousands a year, and 1% make more than that. Conversely, if you are a 1%er, you are making more than $500,000 a year, roughly. Congratulations. But if you are a more typical median person, the 50th percentiles define the point at which half of the people are making less and half are making more, which is the definition of median. So the 15th percentile, same thing as median, and that would be at $42,000 given this. And if you are making $42,000 here in the US, you are making exactly the median amount of income for the country. You can see the problem of income distributions here. Things tend to be very concentrated toward the high end, which is very big political problem right now in the country. So we will see what happens of this course. Beyond this course, that's percentiles in a nutshell. Percentiles are also used in the context of talking about the quartiles in a distributions. If you are looking at a normal distribution here, people talk about quartiles. Quartile 1 and quartile 3 in the middle are just the point that contain together 50% of the data. 25% are on this side of the median. The median in this example happens to be near the mean. For example, the interquartile range, when we talk about a distribution, is the area in the middle of the distribution that contain 50% of the values. This is an example of what we all a box and whisker diagram. Don't concern yourself yet about the stuff out that gets a little bit, and we will cover that later. Even though it's called quartile 1 and quartile 3, they don't really represent 25% of the data. But don't get hung up on that yet. Focus on the point that these quartiles in the middle represent 25% of the data distribution, and those tend to be in the middle. Let's look at some more examples using Python and kind of get our hands and conceptualize this little bit more and focus this little bit more. Alright, let's get our hands dirty with percentiles. Go ahead and open up the percentiles IPython notebook file, and again I encourage you to do so because I want you to play around with this a little bit later. Let us start off by generating some randomly distributed normal data or normally distributed random data. Rather, in this example, what we are gonna do is generate some data centered around 0 with a mean of 0 with a standard deviation of 0.5, and I am gonna make 10,000 data points with that distribution. We are gonna plot a histogram and see what we come up with. It looks a little bit something like that, very much like, but because there is a random component, we have a little outlier here. Things are tipped a little bit little bit of random variations there to make things interesting. To compute the percentile values of this distribution, NumPy provides a very handy percentile function that will do that for you. We created our Walls list of data here using np.random.normal, and I can just call np.percentile to figure out the 15th percentile value in this example. That turns out to be 0.005. Remember, the 15th percentile is just another name for the median, and it turns out the median is very close to 0 in this data. You can see we are tipped a little bit, so that's not too surprising. If I wanna commute the 19th percentile, that gives me the point at which 90% of the data is less than this given value. The 19th percentile of this data turns out to be 0.065. 0.65, that's around here. Basically at that point 90% of the data is less than that. I will believe that 10% is greater, 90% is less than, right around here, the 20th percentile value. That would give me the point at which 20% of the values are less than that number that I come up with. The 20 percentile point works out to be minus 0.4 roughly. Again, I believe that it's saying that 20% of the data lies to the left of minus 0.4, and conversely 80% is greater. If you wanna get a feel as to where those breaking points are in a data set, the percentile function is an easy way to compute them. If this were a data set representing income distribution, like in our slides, we could just call np.percentile and figure out that the 99th percentile is. So you could figure out who those 1%ers people keep talking about really are, and if you are one of them, now get you, and I want you to play around with this. This is a Python notebook for a reason, so you can mess with it and mess with the code, Python code. Try different standard deviation values, so see what effect it has on the shape of the data and where those percentiles end up lying. For example, try using smaller data set sizes and add a little bit more random variation in the thing. Just get comfortable with it, play around with it, and find that you can actually do this stuff and write some real code that works. Spend a few minutes playing around with that. Hit pause while you do that, and when we will come back to this, the movement of data distribution. And next, let's talk about movements. Movements are a fancy mathematical phrase. You don't actually need a math to understand it. Intuitively, it's a lot simpler than it sounds. It's one of those examples where people in statistics and data mining and machine learning and data science like to use big fancy word to make themselves sound really smart. But the concepts are actually very easy to grasp. That's them you are gonna hear again and again in this course. Let's talk about movements. Basically, it's way to measure the shape of its data distributions of probability density functions of anything really. Mathematically, we have got some really fancy math notation here of how they are defined. If you do know, it's actually not that complicated of a function. We are talking the difference between each value from some value raised to the nth power, where n is the movement number, and integrating across the entire function from infinity to infinity. Intuitively, it's a lot easier than calculus. Ready? Here we go. The first movement works out to just be the mean of the data that you are looking at. That's it. The first movement is the mean, the average, it's that simple. Second movement is the variance, and that's it. The second movement of the data set is the same thing as the variance value. It might seem a little bit creepy that these things just kind of fall out of the math naturally, but think about it, the variance is really based on the square of the difference from the mean. So coming up with a mathematical way of saying that variance is related to mean is not really that much of a stretch, right? It's just that simple. So we get to the third and fourth movements. Things get a little bit thicker, but they are still concepts that are easy to grasp. The third movement is called skew, and it is basically a measure of how lopsided the distribution is. You can see in these two examples, if I have longer tail on the left, that is negative skew, and if I have a longer tail on the right, that is positive skew. You can see here what the shape of a normal distribution would look like without skew. If I stretch that out on one side, and then I end up with a skew on the other side, a positive skew in that example. That's all skew is. It's basically stretching out the tail on one side or the other. It's a measure of how skewed a distribution is. The fourth movement is called kurtosis. Wow, that's a fancy word, kurtosis. All that really is how thick is the tail and how sharp is the corner. Again, it's measure of the shape of the data distributions. Here is an example. You can see that the higher peak value have a higher kurtosis value. The red curve has a higher kurtosis than this. Is that black? I cannot even tell. Blackish brown curve here at the bottom. It's a very subtle difference. But a difference, none of this. It is basically measures how peaked your data is. Again, review. First movement mean, second movement variance, third movement skew, fourth movement kurtosis. You already know that mean and variance are skew is how lopsided, how stretched out one of the tails, and kurtosis is how packed, how skewed together the data distribution is. Let's play around in Python and actually compute these movements and see how you do that. To play around with this, go ahead and open up the movements Python notebook file and can follow along with me. Let's again create that same normal distribution of random data. Again, we are gonna make it centered around size with a 0.5 standard deviation and 10,000 data points, and plot that out. Again, a randomly generated set of data with a normal distribution around 0. To find the mean and variance, we have done this before. NumPy just gives you a mean and var functions to compute that. We can just call np.mean to find the first movement, which is just a fancy word for the mean. That works out to be very close to 0, just like we would expect for a normally distributed data centered around 0. The word makes sense so far. The second movement, just another name for the variance, that works out to be about 0.25. Again, that works out with a nice sanity. Remember that standard deviation is the square root of variance. If you take the square root of 0.25, it comes out to 0.5, which is the standard deviation we specified while creating this data. Again, that checks out to third movement is skew. To do that, we are gonna need to use the SciPy package instead of NumPy. That again is built any scientific computing package like Anthot, Canopy or Anaconda. Import scipy.states as sp, and then we can just say sp.skew on vals, and that will give us the skew value. Since this is a centered around 0, it should be almost a 0 skew. It turns out from random variance it does skew a little bit left. Actually that does die with the shape. Looks like we did kind of a pull it a little bit negative. Fourth movement is kurtosis, which describes the shape of the tail. Again, for a normal distribution that should be about 0, and indeed it is. The sharp of the tail, or how sharp the peak is, kinda, if you push it in, it has both effects. So if we are to skew the tail down, it kinda pushes up that peak to be more pointly. Likewise, if I were to push down that distribution, you can imagine that kind of spreading things out a little bit, making tails a little bit farther and the peak of it little bit lower. That's what kurtosis means. In this example, kurtosis is near 0 because it's just a plain old normal distribution. If you wanna play around with that, go ahead and again try to modify the distribution. Make it centered around something besides 0 and see if it actually changes anything. Should it? It really shouldn't, because these are all measures of the shape of the distribution. It does not really vary about where the distribution is exactly. It's a measure of the shape. That's what the movements. Go ahead and play around with that. Try different centers values, try different standard deviation values, and see what effect it has on these values. Does it change at all? Of course, you had expect things like the mean to, because you are changing the mean values, but variance skew may be not. Play around, find out. Alright, that's movements. Let's move on.